Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Scoop. This is Season 4, Episode 39. I am John DiCarlo, and we have a full house again today. Kyle Gauss, Matt Vender, Graham Foley. Good to have you back, guys. How's everybody doing?
It's good to be back.
I'm here. I'm teasing.
Yeah. What are you doing right now?
It's none of your damn business.
Well, it's good to have you guys back. Got most of this episode today is going to be our interview with Temple's associate head coach, Monte Ross. Talked to us earlier today, recorded that interview for you guys, and a couple of minor recruiting updates for basketball. Josh Pierre-Louis now cracked the Rivals 150, is ranked 143rd nationally in the 2019 class. Temple's last top 150 player was Lonnie Moore, who was 140th, right, in the 2016 class.
Somebody tweeted at me, is this the highest ranked recruit Temple has ever gotten?
No. I
didn't respond. The response is no.
No. Who would be? Like, Rivals started doing rankings in 2003?
Obi or Shiz.
What was Obi?
Obi was like into the 120s.
Shiz was 110, 111?
Yeah, probably Shiz.
Was Trey ranked even higher than?
Obi was 129.
Dan Dingle? Wasn't he in the
Dan Dingle was pretty high, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think he was 150. No, I mean, I heard the Shiz. We're not exactly naming a lot of benefits to the top 150 ranking. Yeah, Obi was good, but never took that. Dan Dingle was 148. Shiz Olsen was 111. I'm going to say Shiz Olsen, without doing any more research.
What about Trey?
Trey was not that. He wasn't higher than Shiz in that class. He was top 150, I think.
Lavoie? What about Lavoie?
Okay, so Trey, 127. That's actually higher than I thought it was. Lavoie Allen, Rivals. This is great radio.
Yeah.
Lavoie was 142.
Okay.
So Shiz.
All right. So, but let's talk about our conversation with Monte Ross. Again, talked to him for, close to an hour, right?
Yeah, he gave us plenty of time.
Yeah, so Monte got into a lot of different stuff, talking about how he's known Aaron pretty much his whole life. And he's an interesting study in that he's touched a lot of areas of the Big Five. He hasn't coached at Villanova, but coached at St. Joe's and was part of arguably one of the greatest eras of St. Joe's basketball. You'll hear him here talk about how he had a hand in recruiting Jameer Nelson, how he had a hand in recruiting Delonte West, two of the best guards I've ever played in that program. Jameer, arguably the greatest guard to play in that program. Spent 2 seasons at Drexel early in his career, had a chance to coach Malik Rose. He got his first college assistant coaching job and was hired by none other than
Dave Duke
at Lehigh. And he tells us in this interview that he was paid $5,000 for that job, and then moved on to Drexel.
There's people out there doing D1 assistant jobs aren't getting paid at all right now.
Yeah, yep. So, but we'll play this for you, react to it on the other side, and again, a lot of good stuff here. Hopefully you will enjoy. Well, we're fortunate to be joined today by Temple's associate head coach, Monte Ross. Monte, thanks for making time for us today, and appreciate you joining us for the podcast. You grew up near Temple, correct?
I did.
Where'd you grow up in the city?
I grew up at 17th and Ridge,
okay,
which is walking distance, and I used to actually walk to Temple quite often when the Sunny Hill League was playing here, when McGonigal wasn't the way McGonigal is now. Mm-hmm. We used to play all our games in McGonigal, and even when days that I wasn't playing, I would walk around and watch the league, and so I was very familiar with Temple, and it's funny how it comes full circle.
What does it mean, just having grown up around here? What does it mean to be back? I mean, you've been a head coach, you've been parts of some really good college basketball teams, you've been in this business for a long time. What does it mean to take this step in your career now and be with Aaron?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing, being with Aaron, and Aaron and I have had a relationship, for probably about 30-some years. Mm-hmm. And
when did you guys, because he said when in the release that came out, when they hired you, he said, I've known him pretty much my whole life. How did you guys meet? Was it just playing together when you were younger? Or what
well, it was through basketball. Mm-hmm. We had the same mentor, a guy by the name of John Harnett. And John, pretty much raised Aaron. He pretty much raised me. And so that's how we connected. And you know, that basketball world is a world that it seems like it's big, but it's a tight-knit community. And, you know, we've always stayed in contact, and we've seen each other in different, and then we both have a love for golf. So we always played against and with one another and that sort of thing. So
Who's better? Who's a better golfer?
it all depends on what day it is. Who's ever making putts that day? But so it's been, you know, the lure for me is being able to work with someone that I've known, someone that I have a love for and care for, and want to see him do well and help him in any way to do well. So that was the big lure for me to come back to Temple. And that's what makes it, you know, although Temple is a special place, I always like to say places, universities, whatever, they're made up of the people that are there. And Aaron being here and the people that are around him make it such a special place.
Aaron has obviously been in line now to be the head coach here for about a year now. So how did this all come together with you joining the staff? Has this been a long time coming for you? Have you guys been talking about that for a while now, or did that kind of come together over the spring? How did that all
well,
come together?
it pretty much came together, I would say, maybe over the spring. And initially it was just us talking, and he picking my brain about certain things, and me picking his brain about certain things about, well, what are you thinking about this? Or what are you thinking about that? I know you've thought about this. What are your thoughts about that? And those types of things. And us just talking and just bouncing things off. And then, you know, one day I said to him, you know, well, what are you thinking about in terms of your staff? And, you know, quite honestly, I had no thoughts of getting back into coaching at that time. You know, I had some business ventures and stuff going on that was going pretty well. And you know, when we started talking about it, you know, he mentioned, you know, what did I think about me joining him and coming on, and you know, there was a thought process in it in terms of, well, let me get my thoughts together, let me talk to some people about it and that sort of thing. And, you know, the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about it. And that's when I knew that, yeah, it's the right thing to do, because I always try to judge things about how my gut is and you know, what's my internal reaction to certain things. And my internal reaction was, you know, constant excitement about it and thinking about certain things. And I always know it's the right thing to do when I start to stay up at night and think about it, you know, and just laying in bed and not going to sleep and just looking at the ceiling and running scenarios through my head. So that's what I knew, that it was the right thing for me to do.
As the associate head coach and someone who's been a head coach for 10 years, what did you kind of tell Aaron about, you know, what kind of voice you're going to be from the bench? Well,
you know, that's a great question. One of the things and I've gotten that a lot, one of the things that I tell people is Aaron has played at the highest level. You know what I mean? So you don't get to the highest level, especially, and this is not a knock on him, especially someone who wasn't a 47-inch vertical and jumping all. He has a tremendous basketball IQ. So, and what we're doing now is just basketball. You know what I mean? And from where he came from in terms of the NBA and having to be very cerebral out there, he knows basketball. So I'm just here to really, you know, support and, you know, answer any questions, some pitfalls that can help him avoid, you know, as a head coach and that sort of thing. But, you know, just bouncing ideas off of, okay, well, when you were, you know, a head coach, did you try this? Yeah, I tried that, and it didn't work. Or did you try this? Yeah, I tried that, and it was pretty successful for us. Just things like that, just sharing some of my experiences and that sort of thing. But this idea that, okay, well, I'm going to come in here and show him to be an offensive guru and a defensive guru. No, he's, like, again, his basketball IQ is so high, you don't get to the level that he's gotten to without being a great basketball mind.
Tell us about that 2013-2014 season at Delaware. You get them to the tournament. And it's hard. It's hard to like have a consistent run, the CAA. But that you guys break through, you get to the tournament. What are your memories of that season and just what that meant to the program, what that meant to the university?
It was a tremendous time. It was a lot of excitement. If I remember correctly, we started off that season, I want to say 1-2. And we lost a game to Charleston Southern, I believe it was. And they made a ridiculous amount of threes in a row against us. I want to say it was like 9 straight trips they came down the court and made a three. Something I had never, experienced before. So little things like that stick out to me that we were able to bounce back from. And we had a team that was so talented. They were really talented. We had some really good guards. On that team was the school's all-time leading scorer, Devon Sadler, the school's all-time leader in points scored in the season, Devon Usher, the school's all-time leading three-point shooter, Kyle Anderson. So we had some really talented guys. And the key for me, and I used to always talk to my staff about, is we have to make sure that we're maximizing these guys. Because just because you have the most talented team doesn't mean you're going to win it. And it doesn't mean a whole lot in a one-bid league, you coming in second. You know what I mean? So we had to just make sure that we kept plodding along all season to the point where we were playing our best basketball come tournament time. Because as good as we were, and we won the regular season championship, and we got the number 1 seed for the conference tournament.
Did you have to play it? Was that at VCU? Were they out of the?
No, they had moved the tournament to Baltimore at that point. I used to be in Richmond.
It was really tough to win
Oh,
it there, right?
yeah,
Because they basically had the home court advantage.
And that was extremely difficult. Right. But they had moved it to Baltimore by this time, and VCU had left the conference and gone to the Atlantic 10, and it was very difficult in terms of your whole season came down to 3 games. And we ended up beating Hofstra in our first round game, which was the quarterfinals, and then Northeastern in the semifinals. And then we played William & Mary in the championship, a team that we had beaten twice. I want to say the closest game might have been 10 or 12 points during the year. And we started the game, got out on them, and with doing pretty well, and then they all of a sudden it just turned. It turned, and you looked up. We were down 6 with 1 minute and 6 seconds to go, but we just had some guys that refused to lose, and we were able to. We went on a 7-0 run to end the game, and it's difficult when you're in a one-bid league. It's difficult because everything hinges upon, like I said. If you make it to the championship game, those 40 minutes and what you do determines if you go to NCAA tournament or not, which is for a one-bid league, again, it's the creme de la creme. Being able to take a team to the NCAA tournament, it's something that I'm really proud of my staff. They were just tremendous people that we had, and we worked well together, and I'm looking forward to, experiencing those types of things, because when you see the joy and the pure excitement on your players' faces, that's what you get into this for, just to see that. And that celebration that we had at the end of when that buzzer went off is something that, I'm looking forward to us experiencing here at Temple as well.
In 2014, after that season, you were named CAA Coach of the Year. Also, National Sportscasters, National Sports Writers Association Clarence Gaines Coach of the Year. That had a little bit of special meaning to you since you played for Clarence.
It was that award there. And don't get me wrong, I'm very appreciative of all the awards that I got. Again, I couldn't have done it without the staff I had, and most important, without the players that we had. We had really good players. And I always tell people, look, you want to be a good coach, get good players. You want to be a great coach, get great players. And that's the way that this thing goes. So, but the Big House Gaines Award was something that was very special to me because I did play for a big house for 4 years at Winston-Salem State, and he was just a tremendous influence on me, my life, my basketball life, my coaching life. Just some of the lessons and things that he taught me, till this day, I still use, and some of the crazy sayings that he used to say to us, I still say. But every day after practice, he would talk to us for a minimum 45 minutes every day after practice. And it had nothing to do with that day's practice. It's always about life and what are you going to make of yourself after this basketball stops bouncing. You have to make sure that you are successful in life.
If you were all public league in 1987 and 1988, what was basketball like in the city back then? And how'd you end up at Bodine? Who'd you play against going there?
Oh, gosh. Basketball back then in the city, well, there wasn't that many teams as there are now. I think it must be like 100 teams in the public league now. So, and they put 99 of them on the all public team. So, it was tough. It was difficult because it was compact, and you had to be really, really good to make your public league team and that sort of thing. Bodine, I chose Bodine because my sister went there before me. She was 2 years older than me, and it was an academic school. It was a magnet school, and my mother was a staunch believer in education. She was a school teacher, and my father was a school teacher. I have aunts and uncles who were school teachers. So education was the thrust of everything. It centered, anything else you did centered around your education. So I went to Bodine it was called William Bodine High School for International Affairs, and just different experiences that I got to experience there. And, for me, we didn't win a lot of games in the public league. So it was a thrill for me to even be voted all public because we didn't win a lot of games. But it allowed me to test my mettle against the other, good players around the public league. And then when I got to the summertime and played in the Sunny Hill League, it always prepared me for when I went back to Bodine. In the Sunny Hill League, I was more of a passer because I had so many good players around me. I was more of a passer. Then when I went back and played high school ball during the year, I would shoot the ball all the time because there wasn't a whole lot of talent around me. So it was it was a great experience, and I look back on those memories with quite a fondness.
And was there any player in particular you remember matching up against that was probably the toughest one?
Probably the toughest one. Oh, there were a couple. Randy Woods, who played at Ben Franklin at the time and ended up going to LaSalle. Mick Kilgore, God rest his soul, was another one that we played against. I played against. He was at West Philly at the time, and obviously came here to Temple. Those were probably the two best players that I played against in that 87, 88, in those years. Yeah.
I want to ask you a follow-up question about Coach Gaines, because his story, he's a Hall of Famer, and I didn't even know this till a few years ago. He played football in Oregon State, and he goes to Winston-Salem, and they basically tell him, you're doing everything. Football coach, basketball coach, ticket manager, and the guy's a legend. You coached all these people, Coach Stephen A. Smith, football. To have that as your foundation, it sounds like some of the stuff that he said, I think even John Chaney used to talk about some of the stuff that he said, the same philosophy of after practice, I'm going to talk to you about life. Just when you look back, what are some of those sayings? Because he kind of gets overlooked sometimes as a guy who's one of the real true legends in the profession. What do you take? When was the last time you found yourself saying one of his sayings? What kind of floats to your mind when you think of the stuff that he taught you?
We have again, the basketball community that you come from, it's a tight-knit group. And you mentioned Stephen A. Smith. Well, Stephen A. was a teammate of mine at Winston. So whenever we talk, it's another group of our guys that we're all friends. So when we talk, sometimes in general conversation, you'll just bring up something that, for instance, one of his biggest sayings was, the world doesn't owe you anything. And I damn sure don't, and you really didn't understand it at the time, what he meant. But as you get older, you start to understand that, the world's not just going to give you, like, you have to work for every single thing you get. And, if you're not totally decided on working to go after whatever you want, you're gonna get left by the roadside, by the wayside, you're not going to be successful. And he would pummel that into us every single day. Another thing that he was a staunch proponent of education, but not just education, but the idea of just going to class, getting a degree, and just walking through life. I have a degree. No, what have you learned? What is it that you can? What are some of the life lessons that you can take from what we've done and use that to move on in life? And those life lessons are something that was very, very. It's something that I never forget. I never forget those life lessons, and those are the type of things that I used to talk to my team about. One of his most famous sayings, and I'll have to clean it up, the way he used to say it, but he used to say, like, this idea of having all of these girlfriends is crazy. He used to say, like, birds and bees, like birds. Dogs have opposite sex relationships. Cats have opposite sex relationships. Any animal species has opposite sex relationships. That's not a big thing. So you're thinking you're conquering by having 17 million girlfriends. Find somebody that can help you do your homework. Find somebody that you can have a conversation with. Find somebody that you can later on in life marry. So it was just like little things like that he taught us, and he pounded it into us every single day. So he was a legend. He was a Hall of Famer and all that. But he appreciated, I think, us, his players, for just treating him normal. And I used to do it all the time. I always go in his office and sit down and we used to call him Chief. Chief, like, what do you have today? Like what great wisdom do you have for me today? And he would just spout off something, because he used to say I was a smart aleck. Hey, you just think you're too smart for your britches and and things. So it was great. It was a tremendous, tremendous experience.
Before the Delaware stop, you obviously had a 10-year stint at St. Joe's as an assistant with Phil Martelli. Coached a lot of good players. Was part of that perfect season in 03-04, and then the Elite Eight run, of course. Coached guys like Jameer Nelson, Delonte West, Pat Carroll, if I can remember, a pretty big shot over Leah Course Center from right? Hit a buzzer?
Yeah.
Leah Course.
Yeah.
I don't know what year that was. 06 maybe? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it could have been.
So, what was that run like at St. Joe's? What can you tell us about your, those 10 years there?
Just tremendous people at first to start off with. Phil Martelli. In terms of my basketball development, probably the biggest influence in terms of being in college and showing you how to do on a daily basis what you need to do. The other thing about Phil Martelli is his unbelievable care of the student athletes. Like, everything he did. And it's one thing for me to be sitting in front of you and I talk about, I care about the student athlete. I want to do what's right for the student athlete. The student athletes are the most important thing. It's totally different if you guys, I don't see you guys, and you may be getting ready to come around that corner and you hear me, what I'm saying on the phone or what I'm saying to a student athlete, making sure that I'm doing best for the student athlete, and that's what Phil was. Like, it wasn't just talk with him. He was totally invested in making sure that every young man that we had, and this is something that I took from him and I carry with him to this day. And one of the things that he always talked about is, we're in charge of other people's pride and joy. Their son is their pride and joy. We owe it to them to give them every single thing we have every single day. That is paramount. And, with that type of leadership that he gave, it was no wonder that we were so successful. he allowed people to be who they are, but at the same time, gave them structure, gave them leadership to be able to say, okay, this is who you are, but that's not going to help us be successful. Not going to help you be successful in life. So why don't you change that? And people changing. You talk about the guys that we had on those teams. Oh, tremendous. You talk about Jameer Nelson, Delonte West, Pat Carroll, Tyrone Barley, Dwayne Lee. 2 coaches right now for the 76ers were on that team, Dwayne Jones, John Bryant. The staff that we had, one of the staff members is Matt Brady, is an assistant at Maryland right now. So we just had tremendous chemistry. And, Jameer is somebody that I talk to on a daily basis. Now it's probably weekly because I'm back to work. I don't have time to talk to him. So, and we like this relationship is what this coaching thing is all about. The fact that he and I talk about his wife, his kids, his career, those things now. Like before, it was when I was recruiting this little kid out of Chester High School. What's the latest concert and what's the latest, all those types of things. But to see that evolution is tremendous, and that's what this coaching thing is about. Is watching these young men grow up to be grown men and have families and that sort of thing. It's really, really neat.
I wanted to ask you about that because you had a hand in recruiting, as you're mentioning this now. We're talking about a transformative recruit. When you guys got him, I think people were telling me like that John Chaney tried to get in. People tried to get in. And I think, as I remember, you guys have been putting in the time with Fred Pickett and Jameer ever since I think Jameer was a freshman, maybe before that. And when you guys got Jameer, people were like, whoa, this is going to change everything. And it did. What was it like before everything else happened, you win that recruiting battle? How hard did you guys have to work to recruit him and to get him to come in I imagine you're fending off some other programs and they think they can come in and swoop in and get him. Well, that was a big deal.
It was a big deal, but here's a funny story about that. I went to a Academy Park Chester game to see a kid at Academy Park. And I got there a little early. The JV game was going on. And Fred Pickett and I had been friends for a long time. So I go up and I sit next to Fred. So he was like, yo, man, who you here to watch? So I told him the kid's name from Academy Park. So he tells me, I got a sophomore guard that's not bad. You should check him out. So I said, okay, fine. I'll check him out. And he was talking about Jameer. And it was like, you just never know when you're going to find who you're going to find. Now, what we have found out about him later on, but it allowed us to start that relationship right then at the beginning of his sophomore year. And like you said, we just, again, cultivated that relationship. And it was, I'm not going to say it was easy because we had to fend off a lot of, at that time, John Chaney, like you said, was here at Temple, and he really wanted Jameer. So that was, difficult. But we knew that Jameer wanted to stay close to home. UMass was recruiting him as well, and evidence that he wanted to stay close to home and needed to stay close to home, his first practice at St. Joe's, there were 50 people in the stands from Chester. He was like a legend in Chester for all the right reasons. And I can't say enough about the person that he is and that he turned out to be. And it's such an overused term when you say somebody's a 10 times better person than they are a player. But I'm telling you, that is so true with him. And the way that he just went about his business on a daily basis was just incredible. Super talented. Could have, for instance, our first practice of his senior year. Now, we're just coming off of junior year where we're going to the NCAA tournament and he's getting all this preseason publicity and all that kind of stuff. After our first practice, he turns to the group and says, yo, I want y'all to know we're all fighting for spots here. Nobody has no guaranteed spots here. So when your leader talks to everybody like that, you can't help but to be successful because he took nothing for granted. He was letting them know, look, I'm here to work every single day, and you guys need to come and work every single day as well. But it truly fits. When you say he's a 10 times better person than he is a basketball player, and having played in that league for, I guess, 14 years, I would say he was a pretty decent basketball player.
You were also on the Drexel staff with Bill Herring for 2 seasons and helped him lead to 2 consecutive conference championships and an NCAA tournament over Memphis. What are your memories of that team, especially coaching an NBA player like Malik Rose?
That's the memory of that team, Malik Rose. And it's so incredible. Like, you know, there are certain guys that you're going to coach, and unfortunately, I haven't really been in that situation. But there's certain guys you're going to coach that are superstars that act like superstars, that are like, you know, prima donnas and all that kind of stuff. Malik Rose was not like that. Jameer Nelson was not like that. You know, you just go down the list. Malik Rose, I was really, really smart because when Malik left, I left. You know, like his 2 years at Drexel was my 2 years. His 4 years at Drexel, his last 2 years at Drexel were my 2 years at Drexel. So he was leaving. He was, oh gosh, such a tremendous, again, a young man. He was a tremendous young man on top of being such a great basketball player. Like he was somebody, and again, he's the assistant GM for the Detroit Pistons now, and he and I still text, you know, one another and talk, and you know, I asked him about his wife and his kids, and to see where they were, to see how they've evolved. But when I talk about, you know, you want to be a good coach, get good players, gosh, Malik Rose, and it was the America East, and then it went to the NAC, North Atlantic Conference. Jameer Nelson and Langton. Well, I was fortunate to be associated with some really, really great players, for that matter. Guys that were looked at as all-time greats in the league. Like Malik Rose, I'm sure is if not the greatest, maybe it could be David Robinson, but one of the top 3 greatest players that ever played in that conference. Jameer Nelson, one of the top greatest players that ever played in Atlantic 10. You know, so I have the fortunate to be associated with some really, really good players. But Malik was just tremendous. Bill Herring was an unbelievable coach, basketball mind in terms of defense, really, really stressed defense, and a lot of the things that I implemented at Delaware defensively I stole them from Bill Herring.
What got you into coaching? Was it Coach Gaines tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, I think you're gonna, I think you should be a coach one day," or is it something you just kind of wanted to do? Where did you catch the bug?
Well, like I said, you know, Aaron and I grew up together. We had the same type of interests and that sort of thing. But I learned early on that I wasn't making the NBA like he had a chance to do. So the next best thing to be around the game was coaching. One of the biggest influences for me when I was in high school was John Thompson at Georgetown. And the way that they played, pressing all over the place, I was like, wow, that must be really, really neat. And, you know, I thought I had the bug to coach, you know, and that was in high school. But then I got out of college, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. Only thing I knew is I was tired of being broke. You know, I was tired of being a broke college student. So when I was in North Carolina, came back to Philadelphia. I didn't care what I did. I didn't care. It didn't matter. I just wanted to have some money in my pocket. So I student taught for a year right out of college. And it's an interesting story. Like, I went up to NCAA tournament at Syracuse. UMass was playing University of Pennsylvania. It was UMass, Penn, Cincinnati, and I'm not sure who the 4th team was. But I was friends with Bruiser Flint. And I went up there and hung out with those guys when he was at UMass and that sort of thing. And I was like, wow, this is, like, my job is to go on Monday and go and teach little kids. His job is to teach basketball every single day. I was like, gosh. So after I came back, after about a week, I had a meeting with a couple of guys in the Sunny Hill League. I was like, okay, how do I get to that? How do I want to be a college coach. How do I do it? I talked to Bruiser, and he was like, look, it's very, very difficult to get into. It's very, very difficult. It's a hard job to get into. I was like, okay, fine. I don't really care about how hard it is. Just tell me what I got to do, and I'm going to do it. And fortunate enough for me, I got my first job was at Lehigh University, and the only reason I got the job is this was 1993. The job was paying $5,000 a year, and that was the only way I got the job. Now, here's another little talking about how these things like intertwine. The guy that hired me at Lehigh was Dave Duke. You know, he gave me my first shot, and so I was at Lehigh for a year, $5,000 is the only reason I got the job, and then I left and after a year I went to Drexel for 2 years. But I had the bug. Once I went up and I saw UMass and Penn, and then UMass played the next game. They beat Penn. I think they played Syracuse. No, they played Virginia. Played Virginia. They lost to Virginia the next game. But after I saw that, I was smitten, as they say, and that's what that's what drove me, and I've been doing it ever since.
You've recruited obviously a lot of players over the years. Talked about recruitment at Jameer and some other guys already, but do you have a favorite recruiting story? Something that sticks out?
Here's a recruiting story for you. So I'm at St. Jude's, and there was a tournament. I'm not sure what the name of it. It was a tournament at Villanova, and so I go over to the tournament, and I'm watching the game. Watching. The game ends. So I'm not scheduled to watch another game until like this set of games is over, and then I'll watch another game. So I said, okay, I'll go to the concession stand, I'll grab something to eat, and then by that time, that next set will have started on that side. Before I could take off to the concession stand, this team from Maryland started warming up. I was like, oh man, I want to just go grab a hot dog. But you know what? Let me just watch this team just a little bit. You know, guys are warming up. They're running warm-ups hard, and not your typical AAU scene where guys are just, they were really going through stuff hard. I said, okay, let me just watch a little bit of it. So I watched like the first couple minutes, and there was this left-handed kid who was like killing it. And I'm like, wow. So I checked where he was from in Maryland,
Eleanor Roosevelt High School.
Turned out it was Delonte West. So it was a lesson that I always used to teach my assistants when I became a head coach. When you're at an AAU tournament, don't ever go get something to eat. Just go watch that next game, because you just never know who you. But that was like a crazy story. Like I may have never. If I'd have gone and got a hot dog, I would have never seen Delonte West play and would have never recruited him. And the history that we made at St. Joe's might have been different.
Weren't you guys kind of ahead of the game on him too because of that? Because I think it was like I think he was like the Washington Post Player of the Year that year, but then he had already signed with you guys at that point, right?
And then Maryland tried to come in, but he was very loyal, and he was like, well, y'all didn't take an interest in me before, but now that my name is out there and I've done great this year, but he was like, no, coach, I'm with you guys. And so and when it came down to, before he committed to us, it was us and Manhattan. We were the two schools that were really heavy in on him. Bobby Gonzalez was the coach at Manhattan at the time. And I remember I had been talking to Delonte. I sent Phil, as soon as the period opened, I sent Phil to go watch him play. And he calls me, he says, Monte, what is the deal with this guy, Delonte? I'm like, what do you mean? What's he doing? He said, man, he is the hardest playing dude out here. He said, like, this is ridiculous. He's like, do we have a shot at him? I said, well, I've been talking to him, like, we're in good, whatever. But lo and behold, it came down to, it was us in Manhattan. And he committed to us because we were the biggest school. And then he came. And then once he went through his senior year, that's when he really blew up. But he stayed loyal to us and that sort of thing. So you talk about the two, guards that we had, Delonte and Jameer, it wasn't, like I always like to say, recruiting isn't a science. It's just not, oh, well, you do this, and you're guaranteed to. No, it's just, sometimes it's a lot of luck. Sometimes it's, your relationship that you have with an AAU coach or high school coach, and sometimes it's just not going to the concession stand.
But it changed the balance of power in this city for a good 4 years. It changed everything.
Yeah. No, we were fortunate. We were really, really fortunate to get those guys, and like they were obviously the centerpieces, but like we don't get to where we got to without the Pat Carrolls, without the Chet Stakaitis, without the John Bryants, DJ Jones. We don't get to where we got to without those guys. Obviously, Jameer and Delonte was a cornerstone. Here's another interesting thing that I don't know, a lot of people don't know. That 2004, we went to Elite 8. In the Sweet 16, we played Wake Forest. Wake Forest had a guard that was pretty good named Chris Paul. I'm really friends with Jeff Battle, who was the assistant at Wake Forest at the time. He's now at Providence. And he told me, we beat, obviously we beat Wake Forest to go to Elite 8, then we played Oklahoma State. Jeff Battle called me later on, a couple weeks later, and said, on the plane ride home, Chris Paul and he were talking. And Chris Paul said to him, I need to come back to school for my sophomore year. He said, because what those guards at St. Joe's did to me, I'm not ready for the NBA. And it's just amazing how you look at like Chris Paul now, it's like, but back then he was just a little scrawny freshman who was good, he was talented, but we had seniors. Tyrone Barley was a man as a senior. Jameer was as strong as anybody as a senior. So, it's amazing when you think about those types of things, how that evolution, how it goes. It's something.
Philly Hoops question. You were an instrumental part of the Sunny Hill League, as you mentioned before, where for a lot of years there's really one voice or one presence coming out of an era with John Hartnett. Now things are different. So what's really the key to keeping players from the city to stay in the city, convincing them to stay home?
It's become more and more difficult because in the era that when I grew up in the Sunny Hill League, you died to go to a city school. Right, to go to Temple, to go to St. Joe's, to go to LaSalle, to go to, Villan. That was all you wanted to do when you grew up. You wanted to be good enough to get to go to those schools, and it was an aura and an allure about it. But nowadays, I think it's taken for granted. I really do. I think the young men in the area, they look at the Philly schools and they're looking for bigger and brighter, where biggest and brightest is right here in the city. So we have to, however, and I don't know how it's done, we have to try to change that perception of bigger, brighter is, and just pick a school, Miami, for lack of a better school. Well, Miami is, no, like you have everything to get in Miami, you have it right here at a Temple, at a St. Joe's, at a Villanova, wherever you say. So, there wasn't a lot of AAU back then in the Sunny. It was the Sunny Hill League, and we traveled in the Sunny Hill League, but we just traveled to go. They had a tournament in Harrisburg, had a tournament here, but it wasn't AAU the way it's constructed today. So. Again, playing against those guys all year, you wanted to just continue to play against them. So it was really big to play in the city. Nowadays, it's just, I don't know, it's not the quote-unquote sexy thing. But we just have to change that perception. It's not going to be easy because it is what it is, as the term goes. But we want to keep, Philadelphia players home because there's a specialness about you when you grow up in Philadelphia playing basketball. There's a certain toughness about Philadelphia players, so we want to keep those types of players here in this city as best as we can.
Do you think Aaron started to do that already? Because obviously there's a lot left ahead for you guys, but he gets named head coach, officially introduces the head coach. Now, we're not necessarily talking about a bunch of Philly guys here, but within the past month, Josh Pierre-Louis obviously gets, coach gets fired at UNLV. He looks around and says, "I want to go to Temple. He can be a true difference-making player for you guys." Ty Strickland, not a Philly kid, but like you have the connection there where his father, Rod Strickland, has probably been in his ear, like, I want you to go play for Aaron McKie. First time around in Jake Forrester's recruitment, Temple was not a factor in his recruitment. And then from what I've been told, Dwight's telling him, like, hey, I really want you to play for Aaron. Within a few weeks, three key pieces potentially fall into place for you guys. And Aaron's talking about culture and not being afraid to say, like, why can't we win a national championship here? And there's the talk of culture and toughness. And do you think that's already started to change? It feels like there's a buzz about the program that hasn't been there in a long time.
Well, I've been very, very excited about when I walk around campus, the buzz that people have, and what it speaks to is Aaron's character. Like when you say, well, Rod Strickland wants his son to play for, Aaron, because of the way that Nate Pierre-Louis has been treated. Okay, now Josh, his brother, wants to come and play for Temple. He's mentioned Dwight. Now he wants his son Jake to come. And I think a lot of it is Aaron's character. Those guys know how Aaron has treated them, their dealings with him, what type of person. But I think one of the biggest things is, and I tell the kids this all the time, if you want to be like a top-notch, whatever it is, mechanic, well, sitting next to an electrician every day doesn't really do a whole lot for your learning how to fix a carburetor. I have to say, if you want to be an NBA player, sitting next to or under somebody who's done it for 13 years, coached another 5 or 6 years in the NBA, what better person to sit under to get those types of lessons? Now, you put on top of that, you're talking somebody with a high moral compass to talk to you about life off the court, away from basketball, getting your degree. Not only getting your degree, but learning life lessons along with it. And how do you treat other people? How showing you an example of how to be a good husband, how to be a good father. When you put that on top of all the basketball knowledge that you can get, NBA knowledge, and like it's a really strong draw and attraction, in my opinion. If I was a guard, point guard, wing, whatever, I would do it too if I was a big. But if I was a guard, anywhere within 100 miles of Philadelphia, and you tell me I can go play for Aaron McKie, where he's going to show me how to be a pro on and off the court, I'd be crazy not to. Okay, but let's say you're not just going to come. I'd be crazy not to want to sit down for a visit and talk and see, okay, what is your vision for Temple program, Temple basketball? What is your vision for me as a player? Like, where can we take this? I'd be crazy not to want to be a part of that. So that's part of a strong part of the allure. It's his character, the way he's treated people, and the fact that what he's done for so long at the highest level.
I know it might be a short glimpse of what you've seen just in the limited workouts that you guys have already had so far, and I know you've been on the road a little bit too, but what have you seen just from the guys so far on the current roster? What do you think is possible for next season?
There's a very, very strong thirst for knowledge. Like, these kids really, really want to learn. They want to get better. They come to you with eyes wide open, ears wide open, and again, they want to become the best that they can become. That has been very, very refreshing to me, because you never know in what situation, and I obviously watched Temple a lot this year and that sort of thing, but you never know what is what when you're going to get inside the trenches. But one of the things I would say this, Aaron told me that they have great kids. Even before I got here, he said, look, man, we got great kids. You're going to love them. And they are. They are really, really tremendous young people. And they're fun to be around. But they work their tails off. They really, really work. And when you start with that in terms of having a work ethic and having good people, you have a chance to be pretty good.
Kind of following up on what we were asking before, you were around Temple when they were such a relevant program. They were tough out in March, #1 overall. Do you feel like we're getting back to that kind of vibe with the team? Do you kind of feel that conversation being started with the new recruits and just people around the program?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing is Aaron is not afraid to start the conversation. He's not afraid to wear it on his sleeve what he wants to win a national championship. I remember I said to him one time, I forget what came up. I said, look, man, we can take this thing to the Final Four. And he was like, no, we want to win a national championship. So when you start with that, him not being afraid to voice that and let you know where he's coming from and what he's thinking. Now, with that being said, we're a long way away. We understand that the work that we have to put in on a daily basis, the players that we have to continue to bring in and develop them. Like excuse me, we would love to get 4 and 5 star guys. But Temple traditionally, maybe outside of like a Mark Macon, who was, he probably was, I think Mark was a McDonald's All-American. Outside of Mark, like there hasn't been a consistent, steady flow of 4 or 5 star recruits coming to Temple. Yeah, we want to put our hats in the ring because I think what we have to sell, what we have to offer is we put ourselves up against anyone. Now, save the Blue Bloods, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, maybe that. But in terms of what, Aaron brings to the table and what we can as a staff, with that being said, again, it's going to take development every single day. Young men that are willing to work and willing to strive every day for excellence. And if we can do that, I think the style that we're going to play, and, we'll see what happens. But it's fun to think about, and it's fun to strive for.
What's something that people don't... I'm assuming that basketball consumes your life for the most part. What's something that you don't get the chance to talk about? That's something that maybe someone's never asked you. Something like a hobby that you have outside of basketball. Something that people don't know about Monte Ross. You've bounced around different parts of the city, and you've become a real part of the basketball fabric here. But somebody came up to you and said, "Monte, what do I not know about you? What have you never had the chance to talk about in an interview? What would that be?"
You know what I never really talk about is, one, I have a really love for playing golf. Mm-hmm. I really love to play golf. And between Delaware and Temple, I play golf a lot. Like, I would tell people, and they would ask me how much I play, and I would say, man, I only play on days that end in Y. I always play a lot. So that's one thing. Like, I really love to play golf. I like... I'm a big Tiger Woods fan. Mm-hmm. I think what he's done to the game, he probably got me into playing golf. Mm-hmm. As an amateur, I remember watching him as an amateur, and then as he continued to evolve, I was like, because I was one of those guys when I was growing up, I was like, I had a cousin who used to watch golf, and I used to be like, yo, my man, I'm not watching this. I am not watching this. Like, this is the most boring thing that we could ever watch. And then once you pick up a club for the first time, it's like an addiction. Mm-hmm. You hit a good shot, and it's like, oh, wow. Now, the next 7 shots, 8 shots you hit are awful. They're worm burners. Mm-hmm. But that one shot kept you coming back. So I used to swear I would never play, but now I swear I'll never not play. You know what I mean? And it's so that's probably it. I'm a very simple guy. Like, I love to. People are, in public and in certain arenas, I'm can be very quiet. People will probably be so shocked or surprised to know at home I'm like the jokester at home amongst my family and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm just a simple guy. I love basketball. After basketball's over, I love going home, and a great night for me is just going in the family room and plopping on Philadelphia sports team, whether it be the Phillies, the Sixers, the Eagles. Haven't really gotten into the Flyers yet. Plopping on and just being simple, just sitting in the family room, just watching the tube. I love The Blacklist. That's like my favorite show on television. And watching. I can't watch them on Friday nights now because I'm always doing something. But I DVR them and I just watch them when I can. Just things like that. It's real simple for me. I'm not very complicated. And my wife and I always talk about it's the simple things in life that we get pleasure out of. I have a son that's a sophomore at Winston-Salem State, and he plays basketball. I have a daughter that's getting ready to go to St. Joe's to play basketball. So I've been so blessed and so fortunate. What this game of basketball has allowed me to do and me to experience, my family and I, and I'm probably the second luckiest guy in the world. I know Dump thinks he's the luckiest one, so I'll say I'm the second luckiest guy in the world.
Yeah, if you don't mind, a couple reader mailbag questions from message boards here. So these are screen names of readers from message board. First one comes from Hootie Hoot. Who do you think are the two best offensive and best defensive players currently on the roster in practice from what you've seen?
Best defensive player is easy. Nate Pierre-Louis. To talk to somebody that takes that much pride in their defense is very, very refreshing, because that is, and he and I had a conversation, and he really did it selfishly. He wanted to get on the court, and he found out the way that he could get on the court was to be a menace on defense every single second that he was out there. And lo and behold, you can't take him off the court now because of it. The two best offensive players, oh man, I would say probably Q Rose is, talent beyond. And then it would be probably Nate, but Justin Hamilton, he's really talented. Monte Scott is really talented. Like we have some guys, we have some pieces. Now it'll be interesting to see how they transition to their next years, as I like to say. But we'll see. But we do have some pieces to start with.
As a follow-up, this is my question, more the reader one. There's been so much focus on Q. He declared 2 years ago, and I think he kind of knew. He's like, I just want to get the feedback.
Sure.
I'm probably going back, comes back. And he has these moments where he looks like an NBA player, and then he has these moments where it looks like he struggles with some of the simpler things. What's the key to kind of just getting him? Just
consistency. Just getting him locked in for 40 minutes. I think, like you said, it's easy to see when he's locked in for 27 minutes, he's probably the best player on the court for those 27 minutes. But for those other 13 minutes, he may drift off and disappear and not score or not whatever. So we just have to get him to be that consistent force instead of for 27 minutes, for 40 minutes, and then that will expand the thoughts on his game.
Another reader question comes from Park Al. What are some of the differences between being an assistant coach after significant head coaching experience, being an assistant at the beginning of your coaching career?
Well, I always like to say assistants have concerns, head coaches have worries. We're just concerned about something. But it's been, because they're so close in terms of what you have to do in college basketball in terms of an assistant and a head coach, it hasn't been a difficult transition for me whatsoever. One, I'm working with good people, the staff that we have, obviously Aaron. And two, Aaron allows you to have a voice in everything that we do. And I think that's a tremendous, tremendous help. It's one of the things that I did when I was a head coach is I let my guys have a voice because I wanted them to own it, whatever it is. Now, once games start, it's going to be different because I'm not the final decision maker. Aaron is the final decision maker. My job is to make suggestions, and his job is to determine whether he wants to use the suggestion or not use the suggestion. I'll veer off for a second. I'll tell you a funny story. Gino Auriemma, obviously the head coach at UConn, used to be an assistant with Phil Martelli, Kennedy Kimbrough, I think it was, and he wrote a book, and I was an assistant at St. Joe's at the time, and he says in this book, I don't remember the name of it, but in this book, when he was an assistant, he would give Phil suggestions, and he wouldn't use the suggestions. So he said, finally at one game, he said, you know what, I'm not saying anything. I'm not going. And so Phil turns to him like in the middle of the game, like, yo, man, what's your problem? You're not saying anything. He was like, yo, man, when I say stuff, you don't use it anyway, so I'm not going to say anything. And he said, Phil turned to him and said, look, your job is to give suggestions. My job is to determine whether I'm going to use them or not. So you better keep giving me suggestions. So I wrote Gino a note. I said, Gino, there's finally somebody that understands my pain working for Phil. But it's you know, when you're working for a guy, Phil was this way. Like when you're working for a guy that gives you a voice, like Aaron does, like Phil did, like I try to do with my guys. It makes the transition for you very easy. And also, it prepares you to be a head coach, you know, because your voice is heard. And now, you just can't blurt out anything. You have to think about what you're saying and those types of things, which I think is tremendous.
Final reader question here from the message board. The screen name is Al Dumpf. So I'm going to pare this down. He has a few questions here. I'll pare it down to a couple. You talked a little bit about this. What's the reception been like? Obviously, you guys can't talk about players you're recruiting, but what's the reception been like on the recruiting trail so far with Aaron? And position-wise, do you guys have like priorities or focus for the 2020 class?
The response has been tremendous, and I say that to say, I've gone into gyms. I went into a gym a couple weeks ago, and in the gym was North Carolina State, South Florida, Rutgers, and when I walked in the gym, I didn't feel like I had to take a back seat to anybody. When I was at Delaware, I would have walked into that gym with those same cast of schools and felt like, we got no shot. You know what I mean? So that's been a tremendous difference for me, is having that Temple T on your chest and walking to any gym. Because of Temple's tradition, you know, you don't have to take a back seat to anyone. So that's been a welcome surprise for me. I think the other part of the question, I think our targets are, you know, obviously without naming names, you know, we want to get, you know, the best players that we can get. We want to get a couple shooters because we have some guys that can really get into the lane and that sort of thing, and Ty Strickland and Josh Pierre-Louis, Nate, you know, those guys can really get in the lane. So we got to have some shooters. So we're looking to bring in some shooters, and you're always looking to bring in big guys if you can find a big that you like. So I think that would be our targets.
Monte, this was great. Really appreciate you taking some time for us. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, so obviously a good long conversation there with Monte Ross, but we'll exclude Kyle from this because Kyle.
Yeah, you guys do your thing.
Kyle didn't show up. What stood out to you guys about the interview?
Job.
Wait, he's someone who brings a lot of experience. I don't know if we're laughing, but I was really impressed by
Kyle because he's like, I have a job.
I was really impressed because he seemed to be with his previous teams in very special times. Part of that undefeated team in St. Joseph's. He brought Drexel to the tournament. Was at the tournament for Delaware as a head coach. He brings plenty of experience, and he's also been around so many NBA prospects in the past. And it's a big focus for a lot of these guys coming to Temple, especially who want to be with Aaron McKie. So I just think he's a good match, and he was just very open, and it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, we've heard Aaron talk about it. We've heard Chris talk about it earlier on the podcast when we had him on a few weeks ago, and just the changes in the Philly recruiting scene and how things have changed since Chris played a little bit more recently than Aaron and Monte, but obviously they kind of have that perspective on the way things were when the Sunny Hill League was still in place and guys weren't playing for team final and we are one and going out across the country to play in AAU tournaments. They were staying at least locally, mostly within the city, and playing here. So they didn't get that sort of exposure then. So he talked about that, and I think he has that perspective on things to know what it was like then with John Hardnett kind of running things. That John Hardnett, he mentioned, it was one of his mentors, and that's one of Aaron's mentors as well. So they had that connection. That's kind of how him and Aaron first connected. So he has that perspective on the Philly recruiting scene. And then also I thought it was interesting how he touched on just the 2020 class. Obviously that was a reader mailbag question, and mentioned, some of the targets that they have, like they want to get shooters because they feel like they have guards that can get to the rim. Guys like he mentioned Ty Strickland, he mentioned Nate and Josh Pierre-Louis. So those guys can get to the rim. I think they need a couple shooters. He mentioned that. Couldn't mention any by name, of course, but we've mentioned on the podcast. I think Taj Tweet has to be one of the top priorities for this recruiting class. Definitely one to watch. Then he also mentioned the fact that they're going to be looking for a big. He said they're always looking for a big. Even though I think they have to feel okay about Justin Hamilton and Rashman Park seems to be coming along. Obviously they still have some pieces to fill out.
And also, for someone who never played at Temple, never coached at Temple, really had no association with Temple, he's really kind of the closest you can be to Temple, growing up nearby Temple and being a part of the Sunny Hill League with a lot of guys who either played there or now coaching there. And so I think he's someone who really understands what these Temple fans want for someone who hasn't really been associated with the program before and just knows the scene really well, especially with recruiting.
Yeah, another thing, too, again, like if you like recruiting stories, hearing him talk about what it was like to recruit Jameer Nelson. I meant to ask him. He said I was there to check out, what did he say, a kid from Academy Park? Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask him after we were done recording. Temple fans who are following the program in the late 90s might remember this name. And I think he played at Academy Park. They had a kid named Michael Tabb who either played at Academy Park or one of those schools around the airport. He was really good, went to Clemson. I think Clemson. Didn't do much at Clemson, transferred to Temple, and people had high hopes for him. He just never did anything, and I wondered if that was the kid he was recruiting, and he stumbles onto Jameer. But again, getting Jameer Nelson to come to St. Joe's, getting Delonte West to come to St. Joe's. Again, if you're a Temple fan, you hated it because it changed the balance of power in the Big Five for a while. I mean, those were big gets for them. The fact that Monte had a hand in recruiting those guys was just interesting to hear that story. And yeah, he talked about, again, you couldn't mention by name who they're looking at for 2020, but they need some shooters to knock some shots down. Dominguez Stevens, who I believe is at Woodrow Wilson High School down in D.C., right? Another kid that they've recently offered. Now, he's a top 100 kid in the 2020 class.
He was the nerd in Boy Meets World.
Really? Is that
too
really
old? You're
name?
Too old. You're too young. Mingus.
It was named Dominguez Stevens.
No, I think his name was Mingus or Minkus.
No, I don't know. But yeah, obviously, and he also kind of gave us his elevator speech for Aaron when he was like, if you want to see what the NBA looks like and you want to get there, what better guy to play for than sorry, Graham, I just slapped his laptop here. A guy who'd been in the league for 13 years, and he'd said, okay, even if you're not going to come to Temple right away, I'm at least going to listen to him. So, but yeah, an enjoyable conversation with him there.
And Stephen A. Smith. Played with Stephen A.
Yeah,
Smith.
Kyle
That's pretty
kept
cool.
asking him.
I gave you guys one talking point. Nobody came back and reported to me.
He talked about it.
We did.
It was
mentioned it.
it was very cordially.
I texted you at like 10 a.m. and said, please remember to ask him about Stephen A. Smith. 3:30.
You made it
Did anybody
sound
ask him about Stephen A. Smith?
You made it sound sarcastic. I thought we
No,
were
I mean,
Like
ask him about Stephen
you,
A. Smith.
like you, we also have jobs.
No. Well, yes.
These
no.
are career students right now. I have a job. I had other things going on. But yes, we talked about Stephen A. Smith. I liked hearing him talk about Clarence Big House Gaines. I mean, this is a guy who coached at Winston-Salem State, a Hall of Famer, kind of Cheney-esque. And like the stories he had about him were pretty entertaining. But yeah, he to scratch the itch in Kyle's brain, he talked about the fact that he played with Stephen A. Smith. So so we talked about playing with him and just some of the life lessons he got from him. And as Graham said, growing up in Philly on 17th and Ridge and being around Aaron most of his life. So, but again, he will be Temple's associate head coach. And again, talked about the fact that he's like, hey, I'm not in here to tell Aaron exactly what he needs to do. He kept talking about how high Aaron's basketball IQ is. But he will be a guy who, again, can be on the bench and say that he's been a college head coach for the past 10 years. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that conversation. A couple of recruiting updates to pass along for basketball. We mentioned not so much a recruiting development, but again, Josh Pierre-Louis cracked the Rivals 150 for 2019, ranked 143rd nationally. A couple of offers have gone out recently from Temple. Just mentioned Dominguez Stevens, who I think is, I want to say, 75th in the 2020 class, somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in the top 100.
Really good shooter, has high major offers. And then class of 2021, Nana Njoku. Obviously, it looks like they saw a team final recently because they offered Nana Njoku from Sanford High School in Delaware, 2021 big man. And then Derek Lively from Westtown School, another team final guy, class of 2022. So a younger guy there. Maybe you bring in someone like Jake Forrester, who, if Jake does well, maybe he gets you in, get you on better footing there with Westtown. So a couple recruiting updates to pass along there. Monty did answer, as you heard just now, some of the reader mailbag questions for him. We have a couple others here to get to that were meant just for us. Just to finish things off here, first one comes in from Twitter from Jamal Doman. This question isn't necessarily for Monte. You guys can also answer it. What's the starting five going to be next season? And also, what's the rotation/bench going to be? 7 or 8 man rotation?
We're at that time of the year already. We're doing
Starting
starting lineup projections.
Yeah.
I mean, if you it's hard to say.
I
Almost.
feel like we're getting like a C+ effort from Kyle today.
It's that harsh.
It's time
Professor
for our
Carla.
postseason break. I think we're coming up on it, right?
Just think Kyle cares
Finals.
anymore.
When do finals end?
Yeah,
Today's the last day.
Today. Okay, right. We're getting ready to end season 4. Yeah, a couple
when
weeks
is
to
the new
reach.
season?
When do you go to your vacation?
July, June 5th and 19th. Chelsea and I are going to be in
So
Chelsea.
we got about 2 more episodes until we're taking our summer break.
Well, we can still scoop
We
occasionally.
got
in summer.
about 2 more episodes until we're taking our summer break.
Well, we'll hopefully
Fair.
get a few more coaches on the
Oh
podcast.
yeah,
I feel like
we'll
we
still
were
bring
guys.
as much content as we can.
Maybe we'll actually talk about football for the first time in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What's football?
Hey, Aaron McKie is moved the needle, so to speak.
Just saying, if you're addicted to the scoop, if you're a scoop head, a scoopy,
A scoopy.
Scooby.
you got about 2 episodes left.
Let's make some Scoopy t-shirts.
Start re-listening to the old. We'll do what
Maybe
like
we'll start
radio
recording
shows
this.
do, which is what. But this is the best of the scoop. And it'll be like me
How
yelling.
arrogant for
me
us,
yelling
like,
at Jamie.
that
for
was
2
a
years
great
ago.
episode. Jamie calls us up like, dude, why are you
Dude, I
guys-
forgot to export them. Sorry. Graham's starting to do similar stuff too. The interns are getting out of control.
That was
Gotta
a
keep 'em
long
in check.
audio. I'll explain that off the air, but it's annoying. No, we'll get the clip where I think my favorite one is where it first came out that I didn't like stuffing, and without hesitation you said "F you." Back down.
That was that week before Thanksgiving?
Probably.
Yeah.
I have a lot of moments of just outbursts.
If all 4 of us sit around and record a best of episode like we're it's like feeling ourselves. Can you imagine people listening to that? Like, who the hell do these guys think they are?
Get like bumped to like I'm in.
Holidays.
Yeah, I'm in the sea. I'm
4th of July.
Caribbean.
Best
We
of the
need-
scoop.
We would need like a narrator though in between. Like Jeff
alright,
Collins would be a
the
good
boy-
narrator.
Look,
the boys.
favorite part of the season, and granted, I'm now down in Atlanta. The favorite thing that Kyle did this season was
I feel
Whatever.
completely unrelated or semi-related. I feel bad because I'm starting every now and then. I'll just decide to like peer into the abyss and I'll look at other people's like rival sites, and like I feel bad because like the Georgia Tech site's starting to like really like buy into it a bit. I'm like, oh goodness, this is gonna end poorly.
Buying
You guys
what?
like
Just
like
this
Dave
whole-
Patton and like stuff like that. I'm like, let me get the fan base is like every other fan base. Let's see how long this goes. So see.
what are you
Anyway.
buying into? Jeff's Twitter culture.
I'm
just,
waiting for them to. I mean, they're off to a good recruiting start.
Yeah.
They're like number 11 or 12 in the nation right now, just because they got like 13 people. But back to the original question. Starting
Yes,
5
yes.
for
Let's
next
get back
year.
on track.
Wow, we really got off topic there.
All right,
Yeah.
But
I'll
Not
say-
too far off topic, but
I'm gonna say. Here's what I'm gonna say. Josh Pierre-Louis.
Yep.
Quentin Rose. Nate Pierre-Louis. Why am I blanking on somebody major? J.P. Moorman. Justin Hamilton, come run with us.
Monty Scott off the bench.
Oh crap! Forgot about Monty Scott. We're going back. Josh Pierre-Louis, Nate Pierre-Louis, Quentin Rose, Monty Scott, small 4. J.P. Mormon really come run with us. They go
well,
small at times.
That would have been my starting five.
I
It's
would
tough
say
though because there's not.
I would say
players
yeah.
back.
I would say Monty, Nate, and then Q are the 3 like locks, and then beyond that, I think, if Strickland or Forrester are able to get waivers, I think Forrester would legitimately have a chance to.
Yeah,
to
right
be a
now I'm
starter.
assuming neither of them get waivers.
Right. Under the assumption that neither of them get waivers, though, I still think I'd say Justin Hamilton would be the starting 5 if Forrester doesn't get a waiver, and then the 4-man, they could go small, I think, but I would guess that they would go small in certain situations, but they'd probably roll out a starting lineup with JP at the 4.
Okay, yeah. I'm saying, JP started the last 20 games of the year. Like for him to lose the job in the offseason, I don't necessarily see. As far as rotational guys, I would say my starting 5, and then Hamilton, Perry. Guess a lot more would probably still have a role.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, that probably depends. I think his role could be really diminished if Ty Strickland's able to get a waiver, but we'll see on that.
I had Nate, Monte, Q, JP, and Justin as a starting 5 with Josh Pierre-Louis playing a lot of minutes. I think Dre will play a lot of minutes. I just have a feeling that, again, is Dre Perry going to be a double-digit scorer coming off the bench? Probably not, but I think he might settle into his role a little bit more under Aaron, whether it's just as a really good wing defender or it's a guy that just scores more in transition. Damian Moore is your first and really only big off the bench. Of course, it'll make it interesting if either one of these guys gets a waiver, although I can't say we've gotten any definite indication that they're definitely going to. I agree with you. If Jake somehow gets a waiver, then yeah, he could push to potentially start, but I think they really like what they've seen out of J.P. Mormon. They like what they've seen out of Justin. And Alani Moore coming off the bench is really kind of your, well, I don't know if he's your backup point. I mean, if Josh Pierre-Louis could make him, I don't want to say obsolete, but you hope that you go to Josh before you go to Alani there. But Nate, Monty, Q, JP, and Justin, I think will be my starting 5. And really kind of Dre, Josh Pierre-Louis, and Dame maybe like 8 deep there.
Yeah, and I think with Dre next year, like the big thing for him will be just kind of identifying like a role for him, just be a good wing defender and worry about that, and then the rest will come. So I think if he can try and just focus on that, focus on defense, the rest will come for him because they have plenty of guys that can distribute. But I think we've seen he does have a shot. He can knock him down. We saw it his freshman year at Wichita State. He obviously made some threes on that and had a pretty big game on that in that one. So he has the capability of really being a good wing defender, and then being a guy that can knock down shots. It just really has to come together for him.
And I expect it to really change early in the season, depending on who changed the most in the offseason. I feel like the roles are going to be carved out differently as it goes.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing to watch will be like if Josh Pierre-Louis is as good as advertised, does he force Aaron's hand where you just say, we have to start the game with this kid? He's too energetic. He can play at both ends. He can defend. He can get to the rim better than anybody else. Here's a follow-up question for you. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the starting 5 is Nate, Monty, Q, JP, and Justin, and Josh Pierre-Louis is just playing as good as he can possibly be as a freshman. If that's your starting 5, who would he push out of the starting lineup? Does he push?
I wasn't listening. Who was the starting 5?
Again, D- effort for that. If your starting 5 is Nate, Monty Scott, Quentin Rose, JP, and Justin, and Josh Pierre-Louis is playing like at an all-freshman, all-league, rookie of the year type level, who would he push out of the starting lineup?
Nobody. I don't see that situation it being like, oh yeah, let me disrupt this. Like you're not going to have him push his brother out of the starting lineup. Monty Scott, maybe. Yeah, if Monty Scott's struggling, maybe, but like.
Maybe Monty's a better 6 man or something like that if he can make these shots come off the bench. But
maybe, but like Josh could fill that role too, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing we have to keep, I mentioned this before, the other thing that we keep focusing on is we're all assuming that like the rotation and substitution patterns are going to be the same that we've seen for the last 13 years. It could be completely different. It could be the Jeff Collins thing where I'm going to do waves of this, where like he has a starting 5 and a second unit and they roll this out. Like we don't know. We have no idea how Aaron McKie is going to run.
Right.
That stuff.
Under Dumpf, like they're typically a sub wouldn't come in until like the 12-minute mark of the first half.
And for this, it could be, hey, I'm okay playing 7 guys 20 minutes plus a game.
Yeah, and even like if somebody has somebody makes a turnover in the first 2 minutes of the game, they could easily get pulled. Like I think there's going to be a little bit of a shorter leash where they'll have to kind of be. There might be some in and outs with the substitutions quicker than maybe Dumpf was accustomed to.
And if that's the case, then maybe it's not a big deal if Josh Pierre-Louis comes off the bench. Like if you come into an American level conference team, and then you come in, you're coming off the bench, but you're still playing 25 minutes a game, like with a like obvious projection of like, well, next year Quinn Rose is gone and this is gone, like you'll be able to slide in, like.
Yeah, and regardless of the starting lineup, like you know Josh is going to be able to play. They'll be able to play him with Nate, with Q, with even Monty, I think, and then they could just go small. You might lose something on the boards, but maybe you kind of just have Justin or JP as the 5-man, and you go with a 4-guard lineup. That could be a successful way to play it, but you're probably not going to roll that out as your starting lineup.
It's Drew Holiday, it's Evan Turner, it's LaVoy Allen. Come run with us.
It's a good problem to have. I feel like they haven't had this much depth in a little bit.
Evan Turner.
I think that actually might have been before Evan Turner. I think Come Run With Us was like 2010.
That was like John Salmons,
yeah.
Iggy, that whole crew.
Definitely.
Eighth grade, I bought an Evan Turner T-shirt. No, 8th grade.
I went to the Evan Turner
And now
draft
we
party.
get to the
I
segment
went to the
where
draft
each
party
week
the
Graham
Sixers
makes
had
us
from
feel
Turner.
really old.
The Sixers had dollar dog and dollar soda or dollar beer night for the Evan Turner draft. I remember being like, it's good. He's made a lot of
I
money.
remember you going to that.
You didn't know me, I don't think. Did you?
I
Did we?
thought...
What year did he get drafted? Graham, go.
I actually don't know off the top of my head. I don't know my Sixers trivia the way I know my Philly.
Maybe I didn't
Phillies
know
trivia.
2010. No, you wouldn't know me. 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to it.
Yeah.
It's not Wells Fargo. It's not the center.
Yeah. Anyway, next
Over there
question comes from our most consistent and arguably our most loyal mailbag contributor, Hootie Hoo. Everybody each week, when we're interviewing a coach or somebody, we say the screen name and they chuckle a little bit. Is it worrying that none of our commits have Power 5 offers? The DBs seem to perform well, however. So yeah, it's that time of the year again where we have the same conversation.
So this time, 2 years ago, it was, is it concerning that we don't have any commits yet? Now it's, is it concerning that you have 5 commits and none of them have Power 5 offers? Every single, outside, we were talking about this before the show started. Outside of Alex Odom, now every single commit they have has another FBS offer that you've gotten early. Rod Carey went on the Rodcast with Scott Walkoff earlier this week or a couple weeks ago and said they expect to have the majority of their recruiting class locked up by July 4th. So it seems like they're continuing what the last staff did and continuing what Matt Rule did, and you're honing in on guys you like. You're trusting the tape.
Will there be any July 4th fireworks where they line it up so if they have 6 commits in one day? Will that?
What a build up that was.
That was something else.
No, but if the same thing
I
happened,
say that tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
well, some of those guys took some turns in their personal lives. Some of the kids that committed on July 4th.
Boy.
But if the same thing
That's
happens
when
at
Jamal,
Georgia
that's
Tech,
when Jamal Speaks
yes.
committed.
If
What
the
a
same
shame.
thing happens in Georgia Tech that happened here, Collins might make, with the way that Georgia Tech coaches tweet, somebody might make an off-the-cuff comment about, like, Atlanta is burning, Sherman's back. Like, you never know.
Oh my God.
July 4th fireworks. Little Civil War jokes coming.
Yes, I'm aware. You're referring to the clumsy tweet made by...
The kid, Brent Key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was just deleted and they moved on and acted like that never happened, right?
That's what I do. I do it most of my life. Just it's like when you're on Facebook and you get like 7 years ago I said something douchey. Delete, pretend it never happened, move on.
Or we can talk about what you do with your friends and you go back and find their goofy tweets and unlike them and then like them again.
I don't know.
Retweet them. You gotta
Which
do
one
it.
did? Oh God,
The Depression era
Newsboy
Paperboy.
one. Oh my God. I would give anything to be a newsboy.
Oh my
in
God.
I said what I said back in 2015.
Yeah.
I said I would give anything to be a Depression era paperboy and running around saying extra, extra, just trying to be funny. You unliked it and liked it again.
I would
And
love to be an impoverished
so I start-
child in the worst.
I said you had polio.
So I was talking about this the other day. Chelsea's like, this was while you knew me? And I was like, yeah, were you going to try to take credit or not take credit for this? She was like, why you thought that was funny? And
So
I was like,
imagine this is like what 2013,
when I tweeted it?
Yeah.
I think it was like 2015.
2015.
Too recent.
You were still dating Chelsea. You weren't engaged.
Depends on when in 2015. We got married in
Whatever.
2015.
Technically.
No, so then you weren't dating. You were either engaged or married.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, you ever think back of that sometimes? Like, in her mind, it's like, oh, yeah, like, I'm so excited. I'm with John. We're engaged. Everything's going great. And then you, elsewhere, not like, she's all excited planning the wedding. And you're like, it would be a great tweet. A newsboy tweet. Right after I finished brushing up on my In Excess tweet.
Well, there was that one, too.
I think back to that sometimes, like, all the times, like, Meg has to think in her life, like, oh, man, I just met this guy, Kyle, and all the bull crap I'm getting into like, on the side. Like, just things that would embarrass me.
Have you retweeted or unretweeted that one recently?
I probably will soon.
Yeah.
Why don't you just delete these? Just delete and move
Yeah,
on.
probably will.
Brent
I
Key.
was a big NXS fan growing up. Tweeted the drummer. He didn't have a ton of followers at the time. I said big fan. Remember seeing you guys at the Spectrum.
No,
and
you
were-
asked how can people in the U.S. watch this stream. You asked them a tech support question. Like, hey,
It was not a
hey,
tech
you guys are
support
live
question.
streaming in excess.
It was
in
not.
this
It
pub
was some sort of
in-
documentary.
in Killarney. Like, hey, are you guys gonna be
Australian, not
streaming?
Irish.
Are you guys gonna be streaming this for the U.S.?
U2's Irish. These guys are Australian.
What? So they're not allowed in Ireland? Is
Yes.
there some embargo or some big Ireland Australia conflict I never heard of?
It's like every once in a while you do
They're both
this,
pissed off
and it
because
happens
they're
at like,
old UK
It
colonies.
happens at like 7:45 in the morning. I'm getting ready for work, and it's like Kyle Gauss like this. I'm like, oh Jesus.
You know what? Like most people get up because they have like dreams and aspirations, and you know what keeps me going? Hate.
Do you just roll through like Twitter when you first wake up in the
Oh,
morning?
easily.
Oh yeah. Well,
First
yeah,
time.
we've seen your screen time.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Yours
bad.
is concerning. I'll
It's
do that.
really
I'll
bad.
wake up like 10 minutes before my alarm and be like, oh, I got 10 minutes to look at Twitter and Reddit, and the next thing it was like 25
Reddit.
minutes. I'm like,
I
shit.
don't think I've ever done Reddit ever. It's always messages and then anything I miss, Snapchats and then Twitter.
What's your screen time look like?
Oh,
Oh, it's brutal. Wasn't the one like 16 hours? Like,
no, it was like
it was definitely double digit
it was
hours.
like 11 hours and it said it had been down 13%.
Well, let me ask you this:
before.
because you use an Apple laptop, is it counting that as screen time too?
I don't think so. 'Cause
Oh,
I, don't
God,
I
that's
really don't use the
concerning.
laptop that often, to be
We're
honest.
talking
It's
13
really just
hours a
working.
day.
Yeah.
Just about. Let's see. So this one always takes a second. It's definitely more than
Oh,
6
wow.
hours and 26 minutes. But the other day, like I tweeted one, and it was like 12 hours, and it said it had been down like 12% from the week before, and I was
Yeah,
like,
that
all right,
was-
maybe this is
How
an
often
issue.
do you- what's your
9
sleep?
hours, 52 minutes a day in the last 7 days.
Jesus
Well, how long
Christ.
do you sleep? Do you get?
Mine's 3 hours and 13 minutes. I use my phone a fair amount.
Let's see.
I'm sorry,
I have
4
some other
hours.
stats. I have 252 pickups per day.
What's your number
with
one
my
app?
phone. Twitter.
Mine's
Then-
Reddit.
Really?
Because
It's
Reddit
Twitter, then
messages
messages,
Twitter.
then YouTube, then Instagram, then Xfinity Stream, then Snapchat, then Safari.
Where are you getting this?
You
That's
go
Spotify.
if you do like you scroll down, you scroll to the left, like your notification center. It's like you're on your main thing. Then you scroll to the left. My screen time's on there at the bottom.
Yeah, I didn't add it there, but it's a lot.
But yeah, so
Because sometimes I'll just have it open. Like I'll be playing a video game and I'll just play YouTube videos in the background or like a podcast or something like that. My phone's just open. But in general,
mean,
Oh,
yeah.
that's today.
yeah, and you like, well, it's gonna take a second because it's never done it.
I need to find this exact.
I think you also have to have it set
Tweet.
like. But yeah, so things like that, hate, just pure. I get up, I say, how can I embarrass John?
Oh yeah,
Carl?
okay. It was your screen time was down 12% for last week for an average of 10 hours and 12 minutes per day.
Jesus Christ.
Not great.
No, not that great.
Mine's still not giving me.
So
much.
things like that.
Anyway,
Back to what we were talking about before. Things like that. When people complain about finals, I'm done with them. You spend 10 hours a day just
I mean,
Do
I
whatever you
do
want.
some work on there.
doing whatever he wants.
I
Doing
wrote
grand
the
things.
end of my essay on my
I
phone
also
yesterday. and
another
turned it
thing
in.
is if you guys ever on Wednesdays to our listeners on Wednesdays between the hours of like 4:30 and 6 o'clock, just look at your activity stream and you see all the things that Graham's liking. That's when he's supposed to be paying attention to the podcast.
I'm listening. I just open up Twitter to check any news and stuff, and I have my notes up, and I keep my notes in the pod.
what news are you looking for?
I don't know. It's any
Sixers takes, Bryce Harper stuff.
I was following the end of the Tottenham game today, but I wasn't really following. I just
that
saw
was
it pop up.
the buzzer beater.
Yeah, Tottenham
What's with
won.
people pretending they care about EPL now?
Thank you. And first of all, like, why does everyone care about that? The only reason I care is because this Ajax team is like, like a minor league team basically that could be in the final, and they just lost, and everyone's going nuts, happy. I'm like, why don't you root for the underdog? Soccer sucks.
Well,
On that note.
so again, yeah, but we were still talking about Hootie Hoot's question, right? About
Oh,
the
I thought
recruiting.
we already gone over that.
The recruiting.
Oh, recruiting, yeah.
Is
This
it
is-
worrisome that none of our commits have Power 5 offers?
No, honestly, I think it's honestly kind of encouraging that they've gotten 5 commits so far.
Yeah.
3 of them are Fran Brown guys that he could have gotten hired yesterday and gotten them. But, Matthew Duncan, the quarterback from South Carolina, who we haven't talked about, seems like the Carolinas are now their go-to for quarterbacks at Temple. He had no Power 5 offers, beat Colorado State. He had UNLV. He had some higher level Group of 5 offers. So it seems like they're doing what they did at Northern Illinois. They're doing what previous staffs did here. You trust the tape. You don't care about who offered them.
Yeah, and like I think some of those South Jersey kids, when they go into their senior year, you might see them start to add some offers.
Robert Longerbeam had UMass when Fran Brown and Thad Ward got him to commit, and now Georgia's defensive coordinator is following. He picked up Old Dominion. He was just named the MVP of defensive backs at the opening regional. Like,
we were talking about this earlier, but Harrison Hand was also an MVP at the opening when he was, I guess, going into his senior year, and then that summer he blows up and obviously gets Virginia Tech, some other schools in the mix. So I think when you have like a 6'3" defensive back like Longer Beam is, he's going to add some offers, and it might be hard for Temple to hold on to him. Alex Odom, I still think he'll end up with some offers. He plays at a small school in South Jersey, relatively, Kingsway, not necessarily known as a powerhouse football program, but I think, as he gets some more exposure as a senior, I think he's a 6 foot, 190 pound kid, and could definitely, turn some heads. I think once some bigger schools see his film, his senior tape at least.
Is that it for the mailbag this week?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Quiet mailbag.
Just taking one last gander here. Sam Foreman tweeted us and said, one of my favorite things about the podcast, besides how informative and still fun it is the weekly tradition of who I presume to be older fans posting questions on the message boards after the recording deadline.
Yes.
You might say
We haven't talked about that. We haven't even noticed that.
Does that happen? Did I just have to remind somebody
He
20
came
minutes
back
ago?
He came back.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he
What'd
said.
he say?
Fair for him. Hey, sorry, John. I thought when you posted this, if anybody has any additional basketball-related mailbag questions for us, send them here. We'll start recording around 5 p.m. today. That you would accept questions until 5 p.m. Unfortunately, his question was meant for Monte Ross.
Right.
Which that was done. So it seems like a confusion. It seems like we love and appreciate every one of our listeners, despite John's curmudgeonness.
I am not.
We apologize for John's
We apologize for John.
You just said you're ruled by hate.
Yes.
Didn't say that.
And you're coming at me.
Yeah.
I love everybody. You are fueled by hate.
I'm pulling you back into the dark side. Like earlier on, you were young and you were a lamb. Like when I first met you, you were only 3 or 4 years older than how old I am now. So you were young and full of hope. And now I'm just dragging you into the mud with me.
Who's got a big birthday coming up later this month?
Maybe 11 days from now.
What big plans?
11 days from now I'll be 30, so 10 days from now I'll be dead.
You got a birthday coming up
tomorrow.
Oh, Matt's birthday's tomorrow.
I even knew that.
Well, it's 22. That's not that significant.
In fact,
No, I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, okay, first of all, before we close this out, birthday plans for you, and then birthday plans for you.
Death.
I have a friend's grad party tomorrow night, so after that, I don't know, but the grad party should be fun. Open bar. I'll have a good time.
Kyle, what are you going to do for your 30th?
Nothing. Death.
You expect to die on your 30th birthday?
Yes.
My cousin got an Airbnb in Philadelphia and stayed the whole weekend and did stuff for her 30th. We went to high school with Kyle.
Mary Beth?
Yeah.
Tell her to say sup.
All right, I will.
Anyway, part of this went off the rails. Most of this was Monte Ross talking to us about basketball. So appreciate you guys sticking with us, and appreciate the mailbag questions that we got. We will talk to you guys next week. Any parting comments from you guys, or should I just not take part?
I could have been your cousin.
Kyle.
I wish you would have been.
So he is retroactively hitting on your cousin right now is what he's doing.
Even though he's married. She's single. Just letting you know.
Wrap it up, boys.
Don't you dare.
Does Meg listen to
Meg
this?
Gallus is a fantastic human being.
I would never leave Meg. This is...
Your voice cracked.
Yeah, you sound like Peter Brady there. Anyway.
They'll talk to you guys next week. I will not. But
Oh, that's right. You're not gonna be here next
week. So you got
week.
about one more episode of me before summer break.
Maybe one more episode of me too, but I'll be here next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you guys later.